time to build and a time to break down. Everyone would at some point have noticed, without rhyme or reason, a mood change. Sometimes it goes up and sometimes down. During a 6-month period in 2014-15, I was going without my favourite thing for 10 days, then having it for 3 days. I noticed that sometimes those 10 days were very difficult and sometimes quite easy. There was a pattern, and it coincided with the moon. On one moon cycle I would be in a good mood, and on the next I would be in a not so good mood. Checking what stage the moon was at, I concluded this cycle. Using a standard sine wave over 2 cycles, I could see when my mood hit its peak or trough. The moon was half and waning, going. The sine wave crossed the midpoints when the moon was half waxing, coming. Now, of course, the things that affect our mood are diverse and wide, but I'm talking about those mood changes that just happen regardless of circumstance. While I was monitoring my mood during the moon cycle, I noticed something else going on. A shorter, less impactful mood swing was going on. There was also a daily cycle going on. One day was up and the one day down. The peak or trough was at midday when the sun is at its highest daily point, and would cross the midpoint at midnight. This made a lot of sense as to how many people tended to be cheery one day and down on the next, especially those with mental health issues. So then I thought, if there is a monthly and a daily wave, it would make sense if there was also an annual wave. I recalled my whole life, and it did come to me that some summers I loved, and some I really did not, as summer was always supposed to be the best time of year. I decided just to monitor it, keeping an eye on how my own moods and also observing how others were. Looking at other people's moods, something else became apparent. Men and women were on different cycles. When one was up, the other was down. This helped devise a theory as to why we even have these mood swings. It helps enforce the soulmate theory, in that when we are incarnated to this life, the 2 halves of the soul get a body each, one male, one female. The mood waves are a reminder that we are in a temporary state of disconnect from our other half. After observing my mood and others for over a year, I was confident that the peak and trough of the annual wave was at the autumn equinox. Note: I noticed exceptions with those born in the southern hemisphere. Their peak and trough is at their autumn equinox, our spring equinox. With 3 different mood cycles occurring simultaneously, I deducted that they must feel different, as despite what stage the moon is in or what part of the year, the daily mood would still have an effect. In order to plot the 3 waves on a graph, I gave the daily mood change a 4-point swing. so +2 on the peak and -2 on the trough. I made the moon cycle half as powerful on a daily basis, so that in its sharpest ascent or descent, it would swing 2 points over the daily wave's 4 points. I did the same with the annual wave, so that its maximum swing over the daily wave was 1 point. The reason for doing this was mainly to be able to visualize the 3 waves working together, but it also made sense with how I felt the mood swings. If you are coming up or down on all 3 of the waves, the feelings are very strong, but if it was a mix match, the feelings are dampened and less noticeable. It's also reassuring to know you're never more than a day away from a mood change. I monitored mine and others' moods for a number of years. I knew when friends of mine would be having the most trouble with their wives and could assure them after this point things would improve. However, I did get tired of constantly knowing what I had to come and found myself preferring the position when I had good times ahead of me. It's not very healthy, as we should really be living in the now. During that time, I could feel every twist and turn. Since having not constantly monitored the waves, I forget where I am, but the waves do remind me, and it's most noticeable at the points where the wave changes its direction. You've been going up on your daily, moonly, or yearly part of your wave. You've crossed the midpoint. You're feeling good and doing well. Then boom or whack or slap, something shifts. There is then a lull period as the wave goes over the peak and starts to drop. Once the wave is in its maximum descent, you adjust to the new condition until the wave makes its directional change back up. These 3 waves are driven by the most significant planetary movements. 1. The Earth spinning on its axis. 2. The Moon's orbit around the Earth. 3. The Earth's orbit around the Sun. It makes one wonder if there is real truth in astrology after all. I do believe the other planets in the solar system have some effect, but my research took me in another direction. I was watching quite a lot of historical documentaries and started to wonder about the pattern of war and peace back through the ages. Although I am confident of the following conclusions, the timescales are too long to be 100% sure, as you will see. There are 3 more waves that affect us as individuals and whole populations. Again, their maximum effect on us on a daily basis was plotted to be half as weak as the previous wave. Wave number 4 involves again the Moon. The Moon's orbit around the Earth varies slightly year to year because the Earth is also orbiting the Sun, so it gets complicated with how you measure it. Anyway, most people know the moon cycles don't fit nicely into a year. In the Babylonian period, they measured the year by the moon. On long years they had 13 moons, and short years had 12. They also knew that after 235 moons, exactly 19 years had elapsed. 19 years is known as the Metonic cycle and is the 4th wave. It affects women and men the same. It is the generation wave. 4 of these waves is the expected lifespan of a human. Before I knew of the Babylonian connection, I had timed the trough of the wave to be September 2014. When researching the history of the metonic cycle, it also fitted. This also made year 0 a trough, so perhaps those who had decided where to put year 0 knew something about this. The Greeks also knew of the metonic cycle. It is where we got the word metonic. Here is a quick look at the 19-year wave, with events that occurred mostly at the peaks and troughs from about 800 years ago. Whether any of this was deliberate is unknown and unlikely, But in my own lifetime, I see lots of events that seem to deliberately try to counter the natural pattern of things. In particular, during the ascension of the fourth wave, when we should all be feeling optimistic and happy with life. The death of Diana was 2 years after the trough of September 95. 9/11 in September 2001, and the fear of terrorism shoved down our necks after the peak in January 2005. We could be left as our own negativity would ensue. After the next trough in 2014, we were really in need of a lift, but just got political correctness, LGBT, and Black Lives Matter. Then, as some of us could really have made an impact with good vibes, we got the virus debacle, locked down and put in a state of fear. Once that was over, we almost immediately began a potential world war. At the time of writing this, 310822, we've already hit the change of the wave, August 2021, and in the lull. We'll hit the peak in January 24 and begin our descent. The next trough in September 2033 will, I predict, be a significant one. This 19-year wave came to me during work I was doing on the Book of Revelation. I believe 2033 is the fifth trumpet. See full work here, the Book of Revelation Decoded like never before. One more interesting aspect which helps confirms these waves is this. It is easier to recall your memory in complete waves. So 2 days ago is more prominent than 1 day ago. 2 months ago over 1 month ago. Try it. The mind can more easily make leaps using the waves. Memories of 19 years ago will pop up, as I have more recently experienced memories from 38 years ago. It is the familiarity with the present position on the wave that causes them to do so. I shall finish by very briefly introducing the next 2 waves. These are much longer, and to prove them would require many lifetimes. However, a real history enthusiast with a focus on the interaction of men and women in society, going back far and spread wide, would find it impossible to deny. The 5th wave applies only to men, and its length is devised by the sun, but is also related to the 19 years. There was a clue for me in the Book of Revelation, a reference to 42 months. If a month was 19 years, that would equal 798 years. You can see a pattern in the historical temperature on Earth from the ice cores. There is a correlation to a peak every 800 years. The next peak is 2061. So all men on Earth are in the lull period very nearly at their peak. The last time we men were in this position was in 1224. However, women are on a different wave, an even longer one. The 6th wave is the last one I know about. There probably is a longer one, I just don't want to know. I have hypothetically decided the 7th wave is always gently ascending, growth. The 6th wave is for females only, and is connected to the Earth, but is driven by the Sun. And who knows, may as well add this in by all the other planets in the solar system. The period I worked out came to 2,128 years. When this was all coming to me, I was on a path of discovery, and the number 1064 kept coming to me. One of the things that started the 19-year wave was the reference to the 10 years of tribulation, half the length of the wave. So after checking the date 1064 and not getting anywhere, I wondered if it had something to do with the sixth wave. I doubled it, and things made sense to me. The sun's extra activity in its peaks heats the Earth and adds to its tendency to expand. See Earth expansion theory. The sun then cools again, reducing the pressure. Every 2 2/3 sun cycles of 798 years, the Earth experiences an expansion event, which alleviates all the pressure and the cycle begins again. This expansion event happens every 2128 years and is due on the year 2128. This is the trough of the sixth wave. Of course, more proof is needed. So we see where we are today. Men at the top of their 798-year wave, and women at the bottom of a 2128-year wave. My advice to men is to not be too cocky. And for women, you have good times to look forward to.